If you've been to Paris a few times, or if you live here, or if you've only visited once, you might have a Moby Dick building. The building that has always evaded you, that you've always wanted to see inside. The facade might look amazing. You might be curious to see beyond that big open door, and you just want to know what's on the other side. And for me, that building has always been the Hotel de Beauvais in the Marais. And this weekend, I tamed the white whale. I got inside of this magnificent aristocratic mansion, and I want to tell you the story about it and how you can do the exact same thing. Dear listeners and dear viewers, in fact, because I'm recording this for YouTube with all the pictures and the videos that I've taken, this is the story of the Hotel de Beauvais and how you can enter it and how I finally conquered the building that's been evading me for so many years. This is the Earful Tower podcast. My name's Oliver G. Let's get into it. So first, the facts for anyone who wants to look this up as we're talking. The building I'm going to be talking about is the Hotel de Beauvais. Hotel, like hotel in English, Debeauvais. Beauvais, like the airport, Beauvais. And it's on 68 Rue François Miron in the 4th arrondissement, not far from the Peloton Cafe. I'll get into some of the actual facts and history later, but this is more about the story of what happened when I went in there. I think to rewind a little bit, when you see the word hotel around in Paris, it doesn't always mean a hotel that you stay in. It can mean all sorts of things. For example, the Hotel de Ville is the city hall. It can mean an hôtel particulier is like a townhouse or an aristocratic mansion where people once lived. And this is an example of that. So you'll see the word hotel around the Marais a lot. You're not necessarily going to be checking in there, especially not in this instance. The Hotel de Beauvais is it's an administrative court of appeals. So it's an active court. And I think what attracted me to this building is just firstly the door. This enormous wooden door, and I really mean enormous. It looks like, imagine, I don't know, it's sort of shaped like a fifth of a wine barrel, like a huge semi-curved building in this semi-curved entryway and semi-curved door. And it looks heavy, and it is heavy. And flanked on either side of it are these sort of glorious stone-shaped obstacles, objects there. And if you've ever been on my Marais walking tour, this is the place where I stop and I ask everybody to guess what those stone things are. And this will help if you're ever going to come on my walking tour, because now you'll know the answer. Those things are specifically, they're practical, they're used for stopping the wheels of, like a horse and carriage, stopping the wheels from damaging the walls, right? So they're purely practical. But what's interesting is you can tell an awful lot about the inside of closed Parisian buildings by these chasseroutes. So in this instance, they're big and they're quite extravagant. They're made of stone, and they tell us, not only they tell us that horses once came into this building, but they also tell us that whoever lived there had some kind of disposable income, that instead of just putting a slab of, I don't know, stone or iron or whatever out the front, they put something quite decorative. So that applies to all the buildings around Paris. When you see these chasseroutes, and I'll add pictures of them so you know what I'm talking about, you can tell what's going on in the building inside and which ones are worth trying to slip into. And that's exactly what I like doing when I go around Paris, is slipping into these buildings. Now, this one's quite an interesting one because there's a lot of security. It's an active courthouse. And even if you ask nicely, they might not let you just walk into that first sort of chamber of this Hotel Particulier. And even if you do get in there, there's another big gate immediately stopping you from going any further. So over the years, I've sort of befriended these guards. I tried to bribe them once with bread. It wasn't intended as a bribe, but it just happened that way. And they reminded me that it was a court and I shouldn't be doing that. So I've gone in there and I've stood up against the gate looking in, and I tell the people on my tour, the only way that you can get in here is on the one day a year that they do the Heritage Days, the Journée de Patrimoine. Hard to pronounce. Even harder to remember the date. It's once a year, and they open up all the sort of heritage-listed buildings, and they let you walk around inside. Now, as I said on the tour, the problem with that is loads of people want to go in these buildings, so you end up being herded through them like sheep. And often it's a tour in French, which might not be a problem for some. It might be quite off-putting for others. So I don't know, I just never really got around to making it inside the building until this weekend when it was my birthday on Saturday. That'll come back in this story. And I was walking to the Peloton. And my wife, Lena, she says, she goes, what do you want to do for your birthday? And we just sort of winged the whole day. And it ended up being very like last week's episode of going to the Peloton Cafe, breakfast, lunch at Saint-Régis on the Ile Saint-Louis, Luxembourg Gardens. So we sort of chuckled to ourselves that our itinerary that we promised you guys or that we delivered was very much, in fact, what we do on our one special day in Paris. Anyhow, as we walk into the Peloton Cafe, I see a small line forming outside this beautiful aristocratic mansion. I thought, oh, today is the patrimony days. This might be our chance. So we go up to the gate. There's more security than ever. There's a lot of people milling around. And as you go through that big, beautiful first door, and it opens up onto this glorious courtyard, this big, glorious courtyard, all open for the first time that I've ever seen, I see there's a group, or maybe two groups, standing inside that first chamber. And I'm thinking, I got a 4-month-old baby attached to my chest. And I thought, there's no way we're going to wait for these groups. It's just not going to happen. It has to be now or never. So I go to the front of the line, or I go to the front guard there, and I say, is there any chance I can just come in just for 30 seconds? I wanted to see this building for a very long time. Is it possible? He said, nah, you got to join the groups. And I said, with these two kids, it's never going to happen. Could you make an exception? I just want to walk in and look around. And that's truly all I wanted to do. And he sort of paused and looked at two children and felt some kind of, I don't know, maybe it was the ghosts of 400 years past of the building that was speaking to him in the ear. But he goes, okay, go in there. I'll take care of the stroller for you. So all of us go in. Lena's there as well. We all go in. We have a quick look around. I was like, I've got to just soak this up really quickly before they decide to kick us out. Two big groups of like 30 people each with a guide. And these are, with all due respect, my least favorite kind of tour, where the tour guide is talking to 30 people at once, like sort of reading a script, and the guests look kind of bored. And I was like, I don't want to be part of that. I want to just be running off exploring. So I did. I ran around exploring, taking pictures. And this entry, so just to paint a picture, and once again, I encourage you to look on YouTube or our social media where we're sharing these pictures, but it's from the 1650s. This is, it's been fairly recently renovated, which means these old stones are really gleaming, really beautifully gleaming. And the building itself is just sort of jaw-droppingly beautiful. Unusually so. So there's the inner courtyard is in this big oval shape, and these rounded sort of chasse-roue wheel stopper things are all made of stone, are all stretched around this courtyard. There's this old stable kind of looking shaped places right on the back wall. These mascarons, which are sort of animal faces and human faces in stone, up all the way along this beautiful vestibule, I guess it's called, a circular vestibule with these balconies, all looking into this beautiful courtyard and just gleaming. You got to get this sense of how clean and beautiful it was, and is. And also, I was really surprised to see as you get in there. So imagine me, I'm in there for the first time. I'm just trying to soak it up as quickly as possible. And I noticed for the first time there's a sign on the left with a sort of bronze picture of someone's head. I go up a bit closer. It says that Mozart had even stayed there. I looked it up later. He was like a 10 or 11-year-old when he was there, maybe just for a couple nights, but I thought he'd actually lived there. But even then I thought, Mozart at 11, that could be like, that could be the equivalent of Taylor Swift now. Maybe that was the peak of his career. I don't know. So there were all these things just coming at once. And then before too long, so only like 20 seconds has passed, one of the senior security guys comes up to me and says, what are you doing? Which group are you with? I said, oh, no, your colleague just said we could look in really quickly. And he goes, okay. Yeah, okay, all right. Well, make it quick. So we're looking around. I've got this stress of time. And there were 3 doors going in separate directions. One that really attracted me with a staircase to the side, right near Mozart's head, if you ever find yourself inside. Once again, if you do ever find yourself inside, it's either going to be because you're going to court or because you're there on the patrimony days. So I see this one spiral staircase that really attracted me, and I went for it. Just went up to the top, took some pictures. Brilliant. Took some pictures of the courtyard from upstairs. Admired what I later learned is eclectic French Baroque architecture. Eclectic French Baroque. There you go. And I went back down again. And that was when I saw inside the second door with a really impressive stone staircase. And I thought, oh, that's where I really want to go. And I sort of looked in there and I realized I'd been pushing my luck already. And there was so many security, or at least people that were working there. Another person comes up to me and says, "Which group are you with?" I said, "I'm not with a group. Your colleague gave me permission to be here." And she said, I'm not sure that's gonna cut it. I need to get sort of Mr. Senior guy himself down here. And so they bring over the senior security. He says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Just 30 seconds, but I wonder if I can look and I really mean this, can I just look for 3 seconds at this staircase going up, this beautiful staircase?" And he said, no, you can't go in here. This is not just, is it a group-led tour, but it's a courthouse. You can't just be wandering around here. And I mean, I had 2 children with me. I mustn't have looked very intimidating or anything, but still, they wanted to get me to move on, and I understand it. But it's not your birthday very often a year, once, I think. And that's how often it is the patrimony days, and not often do the two combine with a white whale of a building that you want to get inside. And I figured maybe there was a chance. So I said, "I really promise you 3 seconds to look at this staircase, and then I go. I've been wanting to come in this building forever." And then Lena walks up and she says, "Also, it's his birthday." And the guy sort of he did this thing that they do in France a lot, is they sort of reconsider what they're saying, and then they begin the next sentence with normalement. And whenever you hear normalement, so normally, that means a good thing's going to happen, because it means it's going to start with normalement non, like normally c'est pas possible. Normally we wouldn't let you in, but today we will, is what he said. And then I was really happy. I was about to go in, and then he added, he goes, "But make sure you go downstairs first, because that's really impressive." And I thought, first he'd sort of admonished me, and then he was sending me downstairs. And he goes, "Downstairs is the 13th century vaulted sort of crypt building that you got to see." And I was like, what? He's letting us go even further? So now I've got the golden ticket, I've got the green light. And first we go downstairs. And if you thought the upstairs was splendid, try and get your head around this. 13th century, it's the only part of the building left from when these monks ran it. And 13th century, I'm saying it out loud, the building is from the 17th century. So it must have been some kind of a monk building where just the very bottom floor remained and they built over it. And so you go down these stairs, and then there's these really, also renovated, really beautiful, clean, pure white walls with this vaulted ceiling. And just spectacular. I love this building. I had no idea it was there. So I had a look at that on the bottom floor, raced upstairs, and as we were coming upstairs, Astrid, my 4-month-old daughter, had fallen asleep. And at this point, all the security have sort of taken, I don't know if they've taken pity on us or if they've decided they like us or something. And they go, "Oh, the baby's asleep." Well, you do know that this was once a private maternity ward as well. And I was like, oh, now we're getting the private tour. And it turns out that for quite a big chunk of the 20th century, it was a maternity ward. And they said that an older woman had come in on that very day and said that she was born right there. So I thought all this history, the monks, Anne of Austria, did I even say Catherine Beauvais, who the hotel is named after? I've got it here. Anne of Austria, rumored to have provided Louis XIV with his first heterosexual, hard to say here, Louis XIV with his first heterosexual experience, and favored by the Queen Regent. That's Anne of Austria. And so she was given all these gifts. That's why she got that place. So they're giving us this tour, and they're like, now you got to go upstairs. And that's when we went up this spiraling staircase, took all these pictures, and saw the top floor, which is rather modern and suddenly quite uninteresting, I thought, because, I was there for the old stuff. Anyhow, from the top, actually, funny, I talked to one of the security guards at the top, and I said, "What's in here?" And I thought he said the salle de danse. salle de danse. He said it really quickly. And I went in and it didn't look at all like a dance hall. And I saw on the door, it was the salle d'audience. Salle d'audience. So there's a little French slip up that I made. Salle d'audience. This the audience, the room for the audience, which is maybe something connected to the court up there. Who knows? But the building, just absolutely stunning. I've been reading a lot more about the history afterwards, built on this totally unusual shape of a plot of land. And that's why it's got all these unusual shapes, unusually designed. Totally worth a look. So I said in the intro here that you too can get into these kind of buildings. The easiest way to do it is to go and visit on the patrimony days, usually in September, end of September. This year it was on the 21st. And they, all around the city, they open up all kinds of mansions. They open up like the Élysée Palace. They open up the whole city, right? But the places that are the most popular have enormous queues. So later in the day, we went to Luxembourg Garden. People trying to get in the Senate there, which is opulence on steroids there. There was a queue that must have been, I would say, 300 people waiting to get in. And I don't know about you, I just can't do it. I can't, especially not with children, but 300 people, it's not going to happen. So what you want to do is you look at the big list, find the smaller places, and target them. You can probably do quite a few in a day. The Journée de Patrimoine, that's what you want to look out for. Otherwise, if you're daring, you can see this Hotel de Beauvais just by going into that first chamber that I talked about. But you have to be daring. You either have to put your foot in the door and go in after a lawyer, which is what I've done over the years, and they don't really mind. I mean, they don't mind as long as you're not pushy. Or you can press the button and say that you're just there for a look, which is even more daring. But I think, look, if you're coming to Paris for 4 or 5 days and you're walking past a building like that, who cares if you get in trouble? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What are they going to do? They're not going to arrest you. You get to see all this brilliant stuff if you just dare. In fact, last week I gave a talk for the American School of Paris for all the new families who have moved here. And the whole talk was how best to experience Paris, sort of to get off the tourist track and see things. And then weirdly, foreshadowing here, I used this aristocratic mansion, the Hotel de Beauvais, as an example of how you should dare to explore. And I came up with this I came up with this sort of slogan for the talk, which was, so imagine, this is how to see Paris. It was look up, look down, look in, and look out. And the whole idea of it was look up is that you see all these amazing things I've talked about on the show before, like the cupoles, the curved building tops or flood markers, things like that. Look down, not just for things that dogs have left behind, but also for these medallions on the ground or chasse-rouges, these kind of things. Look in, the idea being like if you see an open courtyard like this one, it's worth looking in or stepping in, or if you see these mosaics on the floor of a private residence. And then look out, obviously, for the cyclists who are sometimes insane. So it's weird. I had slides showing this Hôtel Particulier, and then I ended up going in there. It's totally surprising to me. I think the lesson for us all is go and check out these buildings in Paris that might look hard to get into, but actually are very possible. Especially on the patrimony days. I'm going to leave it at that today. I'm going to say a huge thank you to the Patreon members of this show, patreon.com/the Earful Tower. This week we did a book giveaway, 10 books of Paris Lost and Found by Scott Carpenter. He was on the show 2 weeks ago. 10 books we gave away to members as we relaunch the book club, which is on Facebook. There's like almost 2,000. There's almost 2,000 members in the book club. How did that happen? But we're going to revamp that. I'm not going to be so personally involved. I'm not going to be leading it. More on that to come, but that's going to get some new life in it. It's going to be starting with that book, Paris Lost and Found, from Scott Carpenter. If you won one of the books, I responded to your comment. You better go in there and check if you won, because we'll be sending them out quick and you need to be getting reading. Otherwise, there's all kinds of bonus content for the members, either on Patreon or Substack. You support this show, you get the benefits. And that's the way we've been doing it for years. So thanks to all the members. Thanks to everybody who's listened. Thanks to everybody who's watched on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed seeing inside this Hôtel Particulier. And I'll be back again next week with another episode. Merci beaucoup and au revoir.